beginning the meeting with a public hearing for the 2023 budget. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Brickway.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the public hearing for the 2023 tax budget of the Village of St. Bernard. This budget will be submitted to Hamilton County for their review and action. I have provided council and the administration with the breakout of the budget. There are extra copies on the table by the door if any audience member would like one. The 2023 tax budget reflects the village's general fund, which is the basic operating fund of the village. The estimated revenues for 2023 are as followed. For earned income tax, $12 million. Expected general fund receipts from property taxes, $1,100,000, for a total of $13,100,000. The estimated revenue from state and county from revenue sharing and certain taxes and permits is $216,200. Other expected revenue for the Village of St. Bernard comes from charges for services in the amount of $600,000, fines, local licenses, and permits $150,000, and miscellaneous revenue for $650,000. That brings the revenue to $14,716,200. The estimated expenditures for 2023 are for security of persons and property, which is our police and fire departments, $5,249,714. For public health services, $6,300. For leisure time activities, which is our parks and recreation, $300,357. For basic utility services, which is the service department, $1,547,550. Transportation, which is the senior dial-a-ride, $36,500. And general government, $2,432,956. Transfers from the general fund to other funds, which for example is the streets, the swimming pool, the debt master plan, and employee health plan, are projected to be $4,076,244. So the total expected general fund expenditures total $13,649,621, which leaves us with a surplus of $1,066,579. Does anybody have any questions? The surplus, $1,066,579. So I will go ahead and submit this to the county, and if they approve everything, it's usually around September, sometimes October, the resolution that you would vote on to accept their tax rates. So if there's no other questions, that concludes the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Brickway. So we'll continue on now with the Committee of Whole. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Present.
Mr. Brickway?
Here.
Ms. Hausfeld? Absent. Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Here.
Ms. Beddinghouse?
Here.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Here.
And Mr. Schildmeyer?
Present.
Show that there's 6 members present, 1 member absent. Before we go into our regular order of business, we are going to have a presentation by Mark Wendling, who has done a government structure analysis for St. Bernard and will give his presentation. Mark?
Thank you, Ms. Beddinghouse. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me here tonight. I think I've already met almost all of you. I think, Kurt, you might be the only one I didn't meet in the process. So I don't think you were on council at the time. I know you are. I know. So good to meet you. Yeah. So thank you. I'm excited to present this tonight. And as I go through it, if you have questions, please let me know. I anticipate I'll probably speak for about 20 minutes, give or take a little bit here or there. So this is something that we started probably, I think it was last fall. And it's basically the way to look at the village to see if there are ways that with some charter amendments we could maybe enhance operations, help things to run more efficiently, more effectively, and really enhance the village's ability to do economic development. So those are kind of the things that we'll focus on tonight as we go through. So there were several questions that I focused on when I talked to everyone. One of them was, what do you see as St. Bernard's strengths? And then also, and there it says weaknesses, but I actually use challenges. So, you know, when I look at St. Bernard, it's got a great location. That came out loud and clear, and I'll get into that in detail here in a minute. But it has a lot of real, true strength. I think it has a lot more strengths than it has challenges. And I think that's something that can really be built on with some simple tweaks to the charter. I also asked, you know, everyone what they thought of the current structure of the village, and does it either support or hinder its success. We talked about if you were to restructure St. Bernard's government, what would it look like? Why is there no charter commission currently in St. Bernard, and do we need one? And then what do you believe should be the powers of the village council, of the mayor, or of an appointed professional administrator? And finally, what are your thoughts regarding the statutory positions that are currently retained in St. Bernard's charter? So with that, kind of move on. First, I wanted to focus on the strengths, and I created this word cloud. I don't know if you've ever seen these or utilized these, but what you see these are all concepts, ideas that came up during my conversations with all the elected officials, with the staff, with community members, CIC, all those different groups. The more prominent the word, the more often it came up, the more we heard it from different people. So as far as strengths go, location. We heard that over and over and over again, and I agree. St. Bernard's location is incredible. You're ideally situated. You're close to what? I-74, I-75, I-71, the Norwood Lateral, plus 275. So you can get just about anywhere from St. Bernard very quickly. You can get downtown quickly. You can get up to the uptown where you've got hospitals, you've got the universities. There's just so much about St. Bernard that would lend itself to ideally be a prime destination from an economic development standpoint. Services was something else that came up repeatedly, something that everyone in St. Bernard is very proud of, the quality of service that is offered to the residents and what residents in the city have come to expect. It's very close-knit. That much is very, very clear. I think that is one of its real strengths. What you'll find on the next one, though, sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge, though, too. If you're new, sometimes it can be kind of hard. So it's a strength and somewhat of a challenge for the community. And then there's the sense of community also is really, really incredible. There are some times, though, when you'll see words that seem to almost contradict itself within the word cloud. So you'll see something like you'll see turnover in there, but then you also see multi-generational. So I think they're both true. I think you are seeing turnover in St. Bernard right now, and that is bringing new people, new concepts, new ideas, but you also still have that long time history, that base that is what has always made St. Bernard really strong. As far as the challenges go, the two biggest things that came out from the interviews was the retention of the statutory form and the lack of professional leadership on a day-to-day basis. It's not that Jonathan as mayor is not professional, it's that he can't be here every day. He can't be here to supervise the staff, you know, and it's not that Tommy isn't professional, but I think you're ready to hang it up, aren't you? Real close. So those were the two biggest things that came out. Surrounding neighborhoods, that also was something that gave people a lot of concern. You are a bit of an island here, but I think that's also something that can be a real strength, and you can feed off of the Cincinnati neighborhoods that surround you. Economic development, I think you've got some good things going here, but I do think that you probably need someone internal who can really lead your economic development efforts on a day-to-day basis. And I think one of the other concerns, continuity. One of the things I did hear repeatedly, this kind of gets back to the statutory form, is anytime there's a new mayor, employees and staff become very afraid that they're all going to lose their jobs. And I think I think there's a real desire to establish some continuity between administrations so that the staff feels comfortable, can continue to do their jobs, and you don't have that turnover every time there is a new mayor. I did also hear that St. Bernard can be a bit change averse. I think to some degree that's every community. I don't think that's unique to St. Bernard, but that is something that came out frequently. So we talked about what are the various forms of government that would be available. One of them is the statutory form that, even though St. Bernard is a charter municipality, is essentially retained the statutory form of government under its charter. And I understand why that occurred at the time. I think it was something that it was comfortable, everyone understood it, everyone knew it. And I think when the charter was initially developed, from what I've gathered, is it was put in place because the then city of St. Bernard was expecting to drop the village status, and it wanted to be able to maintain a lot of the city powers that it had become accustomed to, such as civil service, such as collective bargaining with its bargaining units, FOP, IFF, and that therefore. So the statutory form, I think there are some challenges to the statutory form. One, it typically is a non-charter form, which it really does kind of tie your hands. A charter gives you great flexibility, and I don't think that St. Bernard is really taking advantage of that right now. And I'll get into that a little bit more as we get further into the presentation. So trying to get beyond the limiting status of the statutory form, it is a creature of the state. So really, you can't do anything more than what the state specifically permits you to do when you're operating under statutory form of government. And I think that that's something that a charter, if you avail yourself of the charter, it really will make economic development much easier and much more dynamic for the village. And I'll give you an example of that. So I know you're trying to redevelop some of the sites over here by the skyline. You're probably gonna have to assemble property. In order to do that, you can put things in your charter that makes that a lot easier. More importantly, once you assemble it, the assemblage is very difficult to do. It can be very costly. So you want to make sure that you have the right project, the right developer in there. There is charter language that you can adopt ultimately, and that's not a part of the proposal right now, but it's just an example of how a charter can be very powerful, that allows you to do a development deal directly with the developer. Under the state code, if you want to sell property, you basically have to advertise. You have to take the highest bidder, which would not necessarily get you the best project or the return on your buck that you would want to get for all the trouble you went to assembling the property. So that is one of the things that I think a charter can really help you with. There's also the mayor council, or strong mayor form of government. That is what you have currently, even with the more statutory form. But under a charter, it can take a number of different routes. It can be truly strong mayor, where the mayor comes in, hires, fires, does everything day to day. Or it can be nuanced, and that is what I am recommending as a part of this. So as we get deeper into it, I'll explain that more, but basically you understand the mayor council form. The mayor is the chief executive officer of the village. It can lack continuity between administrations, which I think is something that you're striving to reduce or actually get to achieve a continuity. And depending on the charter language, as I said before, it can really be dynamic, but you have to have the right language in the charter. A good example of a strong mayor form of government that most people assume is council manager is Springdale. Springdale has always been a strong mayor form, but the administrator there is empowered to run the day-to-day of the city. And then the third form of government that is prevalent in Ohio is the council manager form. It is probably among municipalities the most prevalent form in the state, particularly in your more urbanized areas. So why is it so prevalent? I think the main reason is because it's fleet-footed. It's very flexible. It allows you to do so much. You've got somebody on staff who typically, this is what they train to do. They train to be a local government administrator. In this form, the village manager would be the CEO of the organization, would appoint all employees, would discipline employees, would basically, with the help probably of a finance director, prepare a budget that would be submitted to council, and council would then vote on it, adopt it, reject it, make changes. One of the criticisms of this form, though, is that the city manager is not elected, and that is true. City managers are not elected, but they are responsible directly to the council and can be hired or fired by the council for really any or no reason. So they are accountable, just not directly to the public. They would be accountable to the council. And obviously, the city manager or the village manager would work directly for council. This is basically your current structure as I lay it out. You've got the electors. You can see going down through there, you've got the various departments, the Director of Public Safety and Service who works under the mayor, but that's the basic structure under the statutory form. If you were to decide that you wanted to pursue this and you wanted to transition to a different form of government, first off, you would be looking at going from a statutory model to a charter model. So in that form, I think you would the recommendation, I'll go down through here, would be to absorb a lot of the statutory elected offices and make them professionally appointed offices. So one of the things we did talk about is whether or not, one, the size of council. Currently you have 7 members. I think 7 members is ideal. The question would become, I think you're completely wards now, is that correct? It's a combination? Okay. So that can work. I put in a recommendation, you go to all at large, but that's really up to the community and what you want to do. I think St. Bernard at a little over a square mile is small enough that you're never going to have a situation where someone doesn't represent the entire town. An example, Fairfield has 4 wards, but they have 46,000 people. So they've got almost 10,000 people per ward. So, you know, it makes sense in a larger community because you can make sure that certain areas are represented, but it's also challenging. In Fairfield, one of the wards, they basically have to beg someone to run every time because they can't find anyone to run in that ward, even though it's that large. So that's something that you would have to decide. Do you want to stay with the current ward system or would you want to transition? One of the things that I do recommend is maybe staggering. So you do 4-year terms, but they're staggered so that 4 run at one time, 3 run at another, so that you always have someone, you've got a history constantly on council. You don't have everyone turn over all at the same time. This would be the biggest one. I'm transitioning from a Director of Public Safety and Service to a Municipal Administrator. So what I would recommend if you want this route, I'm not recommending going the full council manager route at this time. I think it's something you may want to look at long term. I think it would be a good thing ultimately, but sometimes things have to happen through evolution, not revolution. So the way I would recommend setting it up is the administrator would have the power to appoint staff and to frankly discipline or fire staff, but with the approval and consent of the mayor. The administrator also would be appointed, my recommendation would be recommended by the mayor, approved by council. So council does have a stake in it. It wouldn't be just the mayor appointing or firing the administrator. That's something the mayor and the council would have to work on together to make happen. I think the administrator would give you continuity on a day-to-day basis. Hopefully an administrator would be someone who would go beyond, administrations could last hopefully for 20 years if it was a good person that everyone really liked. So I think that's something that would be a real positive. I think it would give comfort to the staff. I think staff would know then clearly who they work for, who they answer to, and it would be someone that they could have there to help them develop on a daily basis. I would recommend combining the auditor and treasurer position into a appointed professional finance director. This could be part-time, given the size of the community. I don't necessarily think it has to be a full-time employee. I know Silverton, their finance director, is about half-time, and it works for them. But that does mean that the municipal administrator would have to take on some additional roles. I think currently you do the HR, don't you, Peggy? I think you would find the municipal administrator would take on the human resources function, the labor relations function, and would also take on the economic development function. That sounds like a lot, but I think that when I was the city manager of Silverton, I did those things. I had the time to do them. You know, I think it's all about the size of the community. And I think that's something that most managers are really passionate about. It's something they like to do. I think that it's something that would be a good thing for the village. And then transitioning from an elected law director to an appointed law director. I think this would be a really good thing. It's not saying anything bad about your current law director. Given the small size of St. Bernard, I would tell you from election to election, it may be difficult to find someone who, one, even wants to run for the office. I know you can, in that scenario, go out and appoint someone. But also, I think it would be hard to find someone who really has a background and specializes in municipal law. The second thing, if you went with a firm, oftentimes you might get a much deeper bench. So you get your person who would serve as your municipal attorney who would understand and have deep knowledge in municipal law, but you also could get someone who has a background in real estate law, labor relations, workers' compensation. You just get a much more dynamic person in this scenario, I think. And this would be the proposed structure. You would have the electors as before, the mayor, but you see the law director would be someone who works for the village council and the mayor. Municipal administrator would kind of function between the two, but according to the charter, would be approved by the village council as well. And then the department heads would all work under the municipal administrator, who would have the appointment authority over them. Questions so far?
Madam President,
Yes, Ray.
I'm just curious if you could dive more into the reasons as to why you would prefer the administrator at this time instead of the manager. Yeah, manager on the surface to me sounds like it would have more independent backbone as opposed to an administrator who's appointed by the mayor and approved by council.
Sure. I think it really comes down to what does the village want to do. I mean, I think the most dynamic form of government is the council manager form. I question, do you want to go all the way from statutory to the council manager form right out the gate, or is that something you would want to evolve to over a period of time, period of years? You know, that would be something that I think that you as a council and as elected officials would really have to decide. But I've kind of taken the lead from different people I've talked to. My sense was this was something that I think everyone could get behind. And I think it is really important that some sort of structure change occur. And so that is the main reason why I'm recommending the municipal administrator at this time. Is it something I think it's something that all the elected officials could coalesce behind. But obviously, if there was something that you want to do more, that would be something you could discuss amongst yourselves and potentially go the different direction.
Mr. President, or Madam President, sorry.
Yes, Bob.
Just, I guess, to put it out there, this would have, I guess you'll get to it next, but anything council would decide about this would have to be put out to a general vote.
Correct, it would. It would need to go out to general vote. depending on when you want to get it on the ballot, if you want to get it on the ballot this November, it would need to be submitted to the auditor's office, county auditor's office, county board of elections, I'm sorry, by I think August 15th, if I remember right, would be the deadline. It has to be 90 days before the general, might be earlier than that. It has to be 90 days before the general election. Sure.
Madam President,
Yes, Peggy?
correct me if I'm wrong, the difference between the administrator and the manager is pretty much the mayor position.
It is.
So I think basically, I think his recommendation is if you went with the administrator, you're not taking away all the powers of mayor, which is what the community is used to. So you would have the mayor working with the administrator, and then at some point, if you wanted to change it, you could go straight to manager. I think it still keeps the mayor actively involved, which the residents are used to, instead of shocking them all at once. Okay, thank you.
That is correct. And that is the major difference, but under the way I've proposed this, the administrator does have a great deal of autonomy and power on a day-to-day basis to manage the city and the staff. So I did want to talk just a little bit, go over the assets of the community again. Obviously, you have an excellent geographic location. You're so close to some really major institutions in the Cincinnati area. You're 10 minutes from downtown. I think that the village for an administrator would be very easy to market and to be able to really promote to developers. You have a very strong commercial industrial base. You know this. That is I think that has been St. Bernard's major strength through the years. For a community of 4,300 people to have, was it about $12 million annual budget? 13 million. That is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Many of you may have seen what has happened in Silverton. They have a $3.5 million annual budget. Yeah, and they've been able to do great things. I think you can do great things with this. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I think your independent school system is a real asset. You're not part of Cincinnati Public. I think that's a good thing. You also have a very well-known, very well-respected parochial school here in town in Roger Bacon. And then you have a defined downtown. I mean, when you drive through, it's got a great history, it's got great bones. I think there's just a lot that can really be built on here. And then you have a dedicated, engaged citizenry, which I think is really important. The people of St. Bernard really do care about what happens in this village. And without that, I think it's really hard to succeed. So I think those are all really great things. So the next steps would be you need to finalize charter language. You would need to get legislation in order to place the charter amendments on the ballot. You would need to promote the amendments, obviously, and I think you could do it several different ways. One would be obviously pushing out on social media, but that only hits a certain part of your top population, so you really have to go at it from a multi-pronged approach. I would recommend doing a couple of public forums to talk about it, why it's necessary, why you're recommending it. And then I think you would want to get it out in the village newsletter so that people who don't use social media, that they would be able to access it that way. That is the bulk of the presentation. One thing we didn't really talk about is right now there is not a charter commission. And I know that that is something we've gone back and forth on. I think that it's something that you can pursue this without it. However, charter commission could be something that could help you promote it as well. So but that's really a personal preference here in the village of how you want to approach this and how you want to go after it. Any other questions at this time?
Anybody on council have any questions or administration?
Madam
Peggy?
President,
Yes, Chris.
one of the questions I had is, what's a typical timeline if we decided, yeah, we want to pursue this, between where we are today and actually being ready to put it on a ballot?
So it's aggressive to get on the ballot for November, but you would need to come together and you'd have to have 3 readings between now and August to get it on the ballot. So you probably, according to Jonathan, would probably have to call a special meeting to get that done. The charter language has been reviewed by an attorney, so that has occurred. So I think the language itself would withstand legal scrutiny. So that's very important. That's one thing I made clear. I'm not an attorney, so an attorney really did need to review that. An attorney reviewed it is Brian Pacheco. I think he's worked for you guys, done some things for you before, but so that has occurred, but that would be the first step. Once it gets on there, and assuming it gets adopted, you would set a date of when you wanted to go into effect. So for example, Deer Park recently transitioned to the council manager form of government. They took almost a year between the election and when it actually went into place before they actually went out to hire someone. So it can take some time, and I think you have to do your due diligence once you have adopted it. There's certain preparation steps that you have to take. And we're talking about a wholesale reformatting of the government. In Deer Park, it was really just transforming into the council manager form. So a lot would have to occur.
Madam President.
Yes, Bob?
Just with that transition, I know you were talking about some of these elected positions being morphed into appointed. Would that have to wait for those terms to start or stop in order to make that transition? Or how would you recommend? Because I know like one of the things was the treasurer, the auditor, and the tax. The tax is appointed, but the auditor and treasurer are on two different cycles. So how would that work?
I don't think you have to wait till the terms expire. Obviously, that would be ideal, but if they're on two different cycles, then one of them is going to have to end early. I don't see any way around that. I would probably, since the auditor, I think, is probably the more prominent of the two positions, I would probably recommend you do it on the cycle with the auditor, but that would be ideal, but I don't think it has to be that way. I think that's really up to the flavor of the community.
Madam President,
Yes, Kurt?
do I understand that we would still retain collective bargaining and civil service?
That is my understanding, yeah.
All right,
There's
good.
nothing in there that would change that.
Madam President,
Yes, Peggy?
I'm going to jump on Chris's a little bit. I know it sounds like it's fast, but if you really think we could have some special meetings, but if you put it on the November ballot, that's when most people vote. I'm afraid if you do it on a different ballot, it will be a special election, and you still have to pay for it, but a lot of people like to call those the sneaky ones. I don't want to see us doing that. I think if we could have the meetings, I don't see why we can't have the meetings. We've been talking about this, my gosh, 8 years for me at least. So I think everybody knew what was coming. I don't think any of this is a shock because we've all talked about it over and over. And we've talked about it with the public, but yes, have the public forums and things, but I would like to see, if we can, I know Jonathan would like to get it on the November ballot because that's when most people vote. And then there'll be 1 year, and then it'll be a mayor election. And as Mark said, that would be the perfect time probably to start it. So I would be afraid if you'd wait till the following November, that's not gonna work. I mean, you're not gonna have enough time, and, I like the idea of the at-large council, and I know we've all talked about that because we have 4 wards that ran unopposed. So we didn't give the residents anybody to pick from in 4 wards. So like Jonathan had said, he's willing to have all the meetings and have a special meeting, but I think the goal is to have it on the November ballot so all the residents could vote on it.
Thanks, Peggy. Anybody else? I am going to give the opportunity for anybody out in the audience that would like to make a comment. We're not going to take a lot of time, but because you were so gracious to come out to hear this presentation, I think it's only appropriate that anybody want to make a comment on the presentation. Marge?
Marge Neeson, 4705 Chalet Drive, St. Bernard. I was on the original charter committee. We had to be elected to be on that charter committee. So as far as I know, you serve until there is another commission formed and that group then is elected. So we should definitely have an active charter committee as we speak, because I was the secretary to the original charter the first time, and we had to run for office. We had to fill out all the paperwork. We had to do all that stuff. And we met, we formed the charter. And I think it's important that you at least realize that there must be a charter active now. It's just maybe it has not been fulfilling any particular change in the legislation that was on the books. I'm hoping that you will have more talks about this with the public, because they are very confused about what this is going to do. My father was the first mayor of Springdale. They started out with the statutory form, and then when they grew, they moved into the city administrator, and they have found a way to make it work really well. I was in high school when my dad was running for office, so I started out young in doing this kind of thing. And you really do need to involve the public as much as you can. People don't say they have any interest in it, but they are very concerned about what you're doing. I think it's important that we consider if there are other alternatives to step up to the city manager, because personally my feeling is that there isn't much staff right now for the city manager to manage. Right now, we're small, but the reason we made the charter the way we did was because we hoped to regrow. The I-75 and all that construction did away with neighborhoods, which did away with population. But we still hope to grow that population, and I think you agree with that. However, we would have different views on how it should be carried out. The one thing that I didn't see in any, and I studied this, the one thing I didn't see was if you could improve the personnel practices, for example, that you have in the community already. When a person is hired by the city of St. Bernard, they are not given a job description. When I came to the tax department, where I served for 12 years, there was not a working computer. The law was not up to date. I had to completely regroup the department. And this is where some of the disadvantages had been for changing from the way we were appointed. I was an appointment, but I also have a degree. I also had done tax, not local tax, because no college teaches local tax. But with SWOTA, Southwest Ohio Tax Administrators, where I became president, and we had to fight with the state legislature because they were trying to take away our tax code per se, and have us go to the state and ask for money when we need a garbage truck or whatever we need. I have gone through 12 years of building that department years ago, which is doing very well today. My concern in consolidating departments should probably be discussed at another time, because there is a whole lot of problems when you try to consolidate tax with other departments. You can have a finance director, but the law defines what the tax commissioner does. You have to comply with the law. And the auditor or finance director will have accounts payable. As you say, maybe if we have a manager, they would take care of some of the personnel issues. But you've got to really consider exactly how you want to do that, and you're going to have to spell out the details to make it work. The easiest change that I can see right off the bat is when somebody is hired new, give them a job description, give them a chance to learn the job. I had to get computer, I had to find out a software program, and we did it, and it's still functioning today. But the thing is, there were errors before, but we shouldn't compound them. We really need to think before we leap, because the biggest income you get is from the tax department. And the one thing we have to do is follow up on people who are not paying their taxes. At one time, you also recommended that we outsource our tax collections. But the thing you don't understand about that is the person who collects the money does not do any enforcement. That's your local tax commissioner at work. So I'd be glad to discuss it sometime when you have nothing else to do. I'm sure you just look forward to that. But I do want to be sure that you really think this through. I think it can be done over time, but you can't just jump into this, because what you're doing is dropping whole departments in a box without taking steps. If you take careful steps, it should work, one way or the other. Thank you.
Thanks, Marge.
Matt.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Can I answer some of her questions?
Sure.
Okay. Marge, this is not something we're rushing into. Leanne and Jonathan and I have been talking about this for a very long time and working on it. That's why we share an administrative person now.
Yes, I did
We're
know you.
we're both confident we can do this. And we all, by the way, we all have job descriptions now, every one of us. And when you get the job,
There always were some, but nobody ever shared them. And this was a flaw in the system.
right. But we
No
have that.
question.
We have that now.
Good.
We've been discussing this, what, Leanne, about 6 years now? Leanne? We've been discussing this about 6 years, yeah. So we do have that. And I think what Mark was saying before, instead of jumping into the manager, that's why he was suggesting the administrator. So that eventually, if you wanted to go to the manager form of government, you could. But the administrator was like a middle ground, like you were saying, instead of jumping all the way in.
Well, my other question would be, what does the mayor do then?
Well, that would.
Just cut ribbons?
No. If you had a manager, correct, but not with an administrator. That's what he was trying to say. So if you went with the council administrator form of government, the mayor would still be involved on a day-to-day basis working with council and working with the administrator. But if you went to the full village manager, you're right, it would just be a symbolic mayor. And I think that's why one of the main recommendations to not do that is because that's not what the residents of St.
Well,
Bernard
it
are
costs
used to.
money too.
Yeah,
You're
we-
paying.
Yeah, we would like to have a mayor. But I guess the one big difference between when you were the tax commissioner now, it's probably just the whole computerized system. I mean, I can get so much more done because when I walked into it, a lot of the forms that I'm doing now are all computerized, where Walt was doing them with the pencil and paper. So I can get things done a lot faster and a lot easier.
So you would actually want to take over the tax function?
I did not say that. I said if we work together right now.
Well, that, we always did work together,
Right,
but it was
so-
just different. Yeah.
Well, but Leanne and I maybe are different. We discuss things with each other. No, yeah, there's no discussion of that. I think the discussion is to keep running, the way we are. But the biggest thing is and I know you use the word appointed, but I'm assuming you mean hired, because, yeah. I think the biggest thing is like when we have a change in power, leadership, Leanne could lose her. Everybody gets reappointed, and then people come in, there's no training, and it's just not fair to the residents. Everything's basically starting over. So by doing this, it would guarantee
Continuity.
Leanne her job, Sharon her job, I think that's the main thing, to run City Hall professionally, and to be honest, to have a boss for everybody here 9 to 5. I think the continuity of having, one boss, and this is the way it's going to be, and this is the way we're going to run. But no, I have no ambition to take over the tax department, no. And I don't even know if I have an ambition for this, and I don't even know if I'm being considered. So we need to stop looking at the people and looking at the position.
Well, it
and
is
what's
an
good
important-
for running the city.
You do have to pay attention to that, because we've had some people that were not qualified that were appointed. So that's where the flaw was in the appointment system.
And that's why we're doing this, to get away from that. There won't be, I'm going to hire my best friend as an appointment that has no experience. That's the whole idea of doing this charter change.
Well,
So
it's-
you would have
It
educated.
sounds easy, but it is not easy. And I really think it does deserve consideration. I think it's good that you've already taken some
Yeah,
steps.
I mean, we've been taking steps, like I said, for 6 years. So I don't want people to think that this is just, we're just going to fly by the seat of our pants and do this. It's absolutely, we've been talking about this. And if you remember, they tried to get a charter committee up before, and everybody just fought, and we got absolutely nowhere. So we saw how well that worked. 4 or 5 years ago? It didn't work. So.
That's too bad, because I was on the original charter and we had no battles whatsoever.
Right.
In fact, George is here. I think you are on the original.
But-
Yes.
Okay, So
Okay, well,
we're gonna-
thank you for the
Thank you,
time.
Marge.
Thank you.
I don't want to speak for the mayor, but I do know that he has talked about having some forums for public meetings as well as doing some other things and making sure the citizens are informed. So thank you all for coming for this presentation. So we're going to continue on now with our meeting. So is there approval for the written minutes of the May 25th council meeting?
Madam President,
Yes, Don?
make a motion to approve the written minutes of the May 25th council meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
So approved by Don, second by Kurt, to approve the written minutes of the May 25th council meeting. So we'll start with reports of administrative officials. Does anybody have anything for the mayor? Oh. Clerk, will you take the roll for a vote?
Mr. Taberky,
Aye.
Mr. Brickway,
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson,
Aye.
Miss Miss Bettinghouse,
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson,
Aye.
and Mr. Schildmeyer.
So 6 ayes and and the absent person not here. So we're going to continue on. Does anybody have a report for the mayor?
Madam President,
Yes, Tom?
from the mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam President. My apologies for not being able to be here this evening. My sister and I are having a small celebration of our father's life this evening with our godmother in Athens. And due to the fact that my sister lives in Oregon, it was a necessity for me to adjust my schedule. As you know, Mark Wendling, president of Staunton Advisors LLC, will be making a presentation to council and the community regarding the government structure analysis that was done for the village of St. Bernard and recommended changes to the village charter. Mark and his associates have put a substantial amount of time into this project and will continue to guide us through this process. Future question and answer sessions for residents will be announced, but residents are encouraged to reach out to their respective council members with any concerns. The report is available on the village website for review. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Madam President. The expenses for May of 2022 were $6,180,000 for $180,439.67. I'm sorry, that's the revenues. Wait a minute, hold on a second. Yes. And the expenditures were $5,345,504.17. Our revenues are $834,935.50 over the expenditures year to date. I'd also like to ask Council for an additional appropriation to 2C2, which is in the audit budget with the COVID funding and other GASB reports the state is now requiring. They have increased our amount for our audit. So basically the state increased what we need, and we need to increase what we pay the state. So I'd ask for an additional $4,000 in that. I also wanted to let everybody know that I had received an email from Michael Evans. I assumed he had sent it to all of you. I'm not sure what that was about, but so I forwarded it all to you, so you have it. And then finally, I would like to put on the committee of the whole that we go ahead and discuss the charter amendments and special meetings so this doesn't fall behind. If we're going to try to get it on the November ballot, I think we need to keep discussing it, so I'd ask for it to be on the committee of the whole. And that concludes my report.
Madam President,
Yes, Don?
make a motion for Peggy Dude ordinance for $4,000 additional appropriation to 2C2.
Motion by Don, second by Ray to have an appropriations put on for the council for 2C2. Any remarks? All in favor? Those opposed? Okay. That will be put on for the council meeting. Law Director Valerie.
No report. I do need to go into executive session after the meeting to talk about pending litigation.
Madam President,
Yes, Don?
make a motion, go in executive session in the meeting for pending litigation. Is that all we have to say?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Motion by Don, second by Bob Culverson to go in executive session for pending litigation. Clerk, will you take the roll?
Madam President?
Oh,
If it's a
yes.
litigation, I think it is, do I suggest we say exactly what it's about? Because part of the litigation is that we don't explain why we're going into executive session.
I haven't seen any definitive case law on that, but I'm happy
Okay.
to,
I'm
I'm
just
happy to,
wondering, I
actually,
mean,
they
if
are
I-
public lawsuits, so I'm actually happy,
I'm
happy
just
to
saying
mention
if
it by
that's why
name.
we're being
There-
sued, we probably should.
There is pending litigation, with the state of Ohio by Nicole Kungle versus various members of the council in their executive capacities, council and committees. There's also a personal injury suit, DeAndre Matthews versus the police department, to be discussed.
Okay. Motion by Don, seconded again by Bob Culverson to go into executive session for pending litigation as been described by Valerie. Can we take a vote on this, clerk, please?
Mr. DeBerke?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
So we will go into executive session at the end of this meeting. Treasurer, John.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening, I have the statement from the Star Ohio Fund that we have with the state of Ohio. At the end of May, our balance there is $7,333,756.64. And I'll make a copy and give it to council and the clerk. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, John. Safety and Service, Tom Paul.
Thank you, Madam President. Our GoDaddy account, which is our email account, is due at the end of June. We pay yearly from June to June. We managed to keep the price the same for this year, which is $9,950.16. However, they offered a 2-year contract for $19,404.32, which is a slight discount and will lock the price in for 2 years. The money's not my issue, but rather the price remaining the same. If you decide that we take the 2-year deal, then I would need an appropriation of $9,900 for this year. My instinct tells me not to trust the technology or the market monetarily at this given moment. So it's up to council. My recommendation would be go for the 2 years, because the way technology's going and the way we're being constantly under attack, you don't know how much the price is going to go up. So if we can lock it in for 2 years, that might be a good thing. I don't see it going down.
Madam President,
Yes, Don.
make a motion, we add that additional appropriation to the Peggy's ordinance.
Madam President?
Yes.
Would that be going into the computer line item or which line item?
2K7,
thank
computers.
you.
Yeah.
2K7.
Second.
Next, I'm sorry.
I'll second that motion.
Oh, sorry.
So there's a motion by Don, seconded by Ray, to have an additional appropriations on the ordinance for the GoDaddy account for a 2-year contract, correct? Is that an additional 9,000 in that? About, or 10,000 around?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, approximately 10,000.
About approximately $10,000. Okay, thank you. Oh, forgot to vote. Keep forgetting that. We take a roll for vote.
Mr. DeBerke?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
6 ayes. So it'll be put on the appropriations. Tax administrators?
So,
Oh, you're not done?
no,
Sorry.
no, Madam President.
Okay.
The next one is we are advancing on the Bank Avenue gas monitoring. So we will now take the next step into shutting down the pumps. As I told you last year, this could incur some legal funds also. So all our readings are normal now. So we are safe and approved by EPA to put a valve on the pumps, and we don't have to collect the water anymore, the runoff. So the valve replacement is approximately $8,000. When we spoke last year, I already informed you we would incur expenses. Our foresight thus far has worked to our advantage. We will proceed with the shutdown. We won't need any money at this time. However, if more legal stuff comes up, then I'll come back and let you know about the landfill. Next, the paper in your mailbox that I gave you for the Nature Works Round 28, the highlighted is the full amount of what we can apply for. Last year's amount was $150,000. It has been lowered to $90,000. I noticed in the packet, we are responsible for at least 25%. The bid for the track was $150,000 to $160,000. We believe Roger Bacon will donate some funds to this upgrade. I would recommend we reapply for the grant and put some of our funds towards the track also, but that will be up to council also.
Madam President,
Yes, Ray?
I thought this grant had to be applied for by June 1st.
Madam President.
Yes, Tom?
So with what has occurred, when it ended, they had to extend it, and when they extended, the funds had dropped. So now we have till July the 15th. Everything is filled out, except I have to change the 150,000 down to 90,000, and they asked me, did we want to go through with it still? So that's where we haven't applied yet, so that's where it's left at. So that'll be up to council whether we want to go through with this. I think a new track would be, especially for the high schools, they have no place to run, so.
Madam President,
Yes, Don?
we don't need to appropriate any money now, correct? We'll apply for a grant and see what happens.
Madam President,
Yes, Tom.
that is correct. So first, we have to be approved for the grant.
Correct.
Yes, and then I will be back, or Paul will be back, somebody will be back.
Okay.
But also, the We Thrive, they were here talking, they had grant money available for stuff. Could you apply for that grant too?
Yeah, I can look into that. Yeah, I'll look into that too. I can look into that also. So with that, that concludes my report. Am I going to apply for the grant?
But yeah.
We already gave you we already approved it last
Okay.
meeting.
Okay.
Madam President?
Yes.
I think what he's basically, what we really need to know is before they apply for the grant, would council be willing to put up the 25%? You don't want to go for a grant and then council, if we don't get any additional funding from like We Thrive, and if council votes no to do that, then we'll be flagged on grants. So I think that's what he's asking. Are you guys, is council okay to go ahead? Will you be willing to appropriate the additional funding if needed, if we get the grant?
Mr. President, Mr. Tommy Paul, I am willing to go ahead and put up appropriations for that extra money when the time comes for the track.
I am also.
Don? Yes, Bob?
I don't think that we can say before or against it voting. I don't think we can.
Mr. President, I didn't ask you to vote. I asked if you, he can't go apply for a grant. I mean,
I don't think we can ask.
do you like the idea? Okay, let me.
Okay.
The idea.
There we go.
Okay,
That's
try
what I
that.
need.
I like
all
it.
right.
So apply
Apply.
and hope. Okay. That concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you. Tax Commissioner Leanne?
Thank you, Madam President. So the tax collections for May of 2022 were $677,518. May of 2022 is down 10.5% from May of 2021. This is largely due to the tax filing due date being May 18th last year, but it went back to April this year, so of course that shifted things. The tax refunds for May were $15,810.95. Delinquent tax collected with capital recovery was $954.22. Delinquent tax collected with the Ohio Attorney General's office was $31,323.64. And taxes paid through the e-file portal was $2,780.73. That concludes my report.
Madam President.
Yes.
Leanne, real quick, I know in front of the state of Ohio Supreme Court is the income tax refund. Have we gotten any word?
So one of the cases is headed toward the Ohio Supreme Court to be heard. So the 2020 tax year, that's still in limbo. There's not been an official ruling on that. The 2021, however, I have gotten refunds for that and have issued refunds for that. That's partly why our refunds are up this year, was for the 2021 tax year.
So report of standing committees. Finance, Don Taberky.
No report, but we do have orders 18 in our mailboxes. Make a motion to put that on the table.
Okay, is there a motion? There's a motion on the table from Don and seconded by Ray for ordinance number 18 to be put on the table for the council. And everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, ordinance number 18 will be on for council meeting. Safety, Kirk Brookway.
Madam President, no report. Thank you.
Madam President.
Yes, Don.
The ordinance 18 is an ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of St. Bernard, Ohio, revising the traffic, general offenses, and fire prevention codes to comply with state law and declaring an emergency. Just want to put that on for record.
Thank you, Don. Does anybody have a report for service from Patty Housefeld? Okay, we'll move on to public improvements. Bob Culberson.
Thank you, Madam President. The CIC did not meet last month, so we're going to have a meeting this month on June 28th at 6 p.m. in council chambers. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Bob. I have no report for laws, contracts, and claims. Marketing, Ray Culberson.
Thanks, Madam President. On Monday, June 20th, there will be the next St. Bernard Little Grove Historical Society program. This will start at 7 p.m. in the main level of the Municipal building. On Saturday, June 25th at 3 p.m., there will be the grand opening of the St. Bernard Community Garden down at Ross Park next to the tennis courts. And lastly, I'd like to wish the Roger Bacon boys baseball team good luck. They're playing right now as we speak in the state semifinals. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ray. Business and Industry, Chris Schultmeyer.
No report, Madam President.
Thank you, Chris. Is there anybody in the audience? Okay, anybody on council for new business?
Madam President?
Yes,
I
Peggy.
don't know if this is new or old, but before, I'm going to review the funds and see if we need to transfer any money between the funds while I'm doing this ordinance, so we won't need a separate ordinance later, so I'll let you know. But that's not additional spending, it's just moving from one account to the other. But I will review it, and I might add some of those to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Peggy.
Madam President.
Yes, Bob.
While Peggy was doing it, Tommy, I don't know, do we have to look with inflation and prices going through the roof, fuel and that, do we have any concerns that we're going to need extra funds while she's going to review those?
So far, we're safe. However, I just told her today, we broke a trash record, the highest bill I've ever received, $7,500 for 1 month. So, now, if you start adding things together, but it still looks like I may make that also. Gas is a concern, so I have rearranged some of the service department duties to save on patrol that way. That's going to be close. But then again, we always looked at it and discussed, what happens, and so that's how it's the foresight again. So we're taking a chance, but the minute it starts getting low where I know I'm not going to make the rest of the year, then I'll come to council.
Madam President?
Yes, Peggy.
Oh, sorry. We did raise it a little bit from last year to this year, so there is a little bit more in there because we saw the gas prices. But yes, we discussed those today, that we're going to need to monitor those very closely.
Madam President.
Yes, Don.
Tom, I know the gas pump down the garage doesn't tag each car with usage or each vehicle, whatever. But we got to get close to approximation. The hybrid cars, are they saving any money running electric?
That I am not sure of. I'll have to ask Chief Semos that. I would assume that the patrol officers would know, get an inkling how frequently they're going down there. Just for council's information and for the village's information, when the system broke, where we used to watch each car, who filled up, when all that, it was outdated. So in order to do that, we would have to have a new computer service, new software, and new hardware to run that pump. And at the time, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 20-something grand. So we left it go and said, we have cameras on it. We know who goes down there. So that's just for the village's information.
Anybody have any other questions, comments? Okay, so for council, we have two ordinance number 18, and then we'll have an appropriations ordinance that Peggy will be completing for us for the two items that were listed. Is there a motion for the excuse of the absent member?
Madam President,
Yes, Ray?
make a motion we excuse the absent member.
There is a motion by Ray, second by Don, to excuse the absent member. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so we will go into executive session.